The human opened his eyes slowly. His head pounded, his body felt heavy, and for a moment he thought he was still dreaming. But the ground under him was cold and hard, like stone mixed with metal. A low hum echoed through the walls, as if the very room was alive. He forced himself to sit up, his breath quick and shallow. That was when he noticed the truth. This was not a normal room. He was inside some kind of alien prison. The walls glowed faintly with shifting blue light. Patterns, moving like veins under skin. Strange symbols floated across the walls, changing every few seconds as if written by invisible hands. The air smelled sharp, metallic, and strange. His eyes adjusted, and slowly, he saw shadows moving around him. Not shadows, figures. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. They were not human. Their faces, their bodies, their eyes, all different from anything he had ever seen. Some had glowing skin, others had horns that curved back like blades. Some had eyes that shone like fire, others had hair that floated as if alive. But they all had one thing in common. They were women. He blinked in disbelief, his heart racing. Faster. Hundreds of alien women stared at him from the corners of the massive chamber, whispering in their own languages, their voices mixing like a storm of sound. They stood in groups, some in armor, some in rags, all dangerous in their own way. Their eyes fixed on him, studying him like predators watching an animal caught in a cage. For a moment, silence fell. Then a whisper started. It was a word in a language he did not know, but the tone was clear. Shock, surprise, maybe even fear. More whispers followed, and soon the room was alive with noise. They were pointing at him, talking about him, laughing, hissing, growling. The human tried to stand, but his legs trembled. He felt weak, but his instincts screamed that he had to move, had to survive. He leaned against the wall, scanning the crowd. That was when he noticed something else. The guards. Tall, armored figures stood above the prison floor on glowing platforms. Their bodies were covered in black armor, their faces hidden behind masks shaped like snarling beasts. They held long spears that pulsed with energy. The guards did not look at the alien women. They looked only at him, watching, waiting. The human's throat went dry. Why were they only watching him? Why not the hundreds of others? The alien women began to move closer, slowly, carefully, as if drawn by some invisible force. Their eyes were hungry, not with food, but with something darker. Some of them smirked, others snarled. A few looked at him with curiosity, but in every gaze there was danger. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. Her skin was silver, her hair black as night, her eyes burning with gold light. She spoke in her language, her voice sharp and commanding. The others grew silent. Then she looked directly at the human. Her golden eyes narrowed. She spoke one word. This time he understood it. Male. The word cut through the air like a blade. The entire prison erupted. Voices shouted, some laughing, some cursing, some screaming. The noise was deafening. They were shouting at him, about him. A male here, in a place where no man should ever exist. The human backed away, his chest tightening. He had no weapon, no armor, no idea where he was. But he knew one thing for certain. He was in the middle of a storm, and every pair of eyes in this prison was locked on him. The silver-skinned woman smiled cruelly. She raised her hand, pointing at him, and suddenly 2 other aliens rushed forward. Their bodies were lean and strong, their eyes filled with violence. They reached for him. Instinct took over. The human ducked, his body moving before his mind even caught up. One alien swung her claws, but he grabbed her arm, twisting it sharply. She cried out, and he kicked her in the stomach, sending her sprawling back. The second one lunged, but he dropped low, sweeping her legs from under her. She hit the ground hard. The crowd gasped. The whispers turned to roars, shock, surprise, fear. The human's chest rose and fell rapidly. He had no idea how he had done it, but his body remembered what his mind did not. He was not helpless. He was not weak. The guards above shifted, their spears glowing brighter. But they did not move. They only watched. The silver-skinned leader tilted her head, her golden eyes narrowing again. This time, she looked less amused and more intrigued. She stepped closer, her smile fading into something colder. The human took a step back, his fists clenched, his mind racing. He did not understand their words, but he understood their intent. He was not just another prisoner. He was something else. Something different. The prison hummed louder, the walls shifting their glowing patterns. A strange vibration filled the floor beneath his feet, like the entire structure was reacting to him. The alien women stopped moving. Even the silver leader froze. Every head turned toward the walls as the symbols shifted again, glowing brighter, sharper, faster. The human looked around in confusion. He had no idea what was happening, but deep inside he felt it. The prison was alive, and somehow, it recognized him. The guards above exchanged quick glances. Their glowing spears dimmed slightly as if waiting. The whispers began again, but now they were different. Not mocking, not angry. They were fearful. Some of the women stepped back. Others looked at him with wide, cautious eyes. The human's breath caught in his throat. He didn't understand why, but one thing was certain. He was not just a prisoner in this place, he was the key. The prison was never silent again after that moment. The fight between the human and the two alien inmates became a story whispered across the dark halls. No one had expected him to survive, let alone win, yet the real shock was not his strength. It was the prison itself, the way the walls had glowed brighter, the way the strange patterns moved when he stood, the way the ground seemed to tremble beneath his feet. It was as if the prison had been waiting for him. The human sat alone in a corner, his back against the cold wall, trying to make sense of everything. He could still feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on him. Some were filled with hunger, some with fear, some with curiosity. None of them looked away for long. He was not just another inmate now. He was something more, something unknown. A group of alien women approached him slowly. They were smaller than the others, dressed in scraps of fabric that looked stolen from guards. Their eyes were sharp, calculating like hunters planning a trap. One of them crouched low, her pale blue skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She spoke softly in her language, pointing at the walls, then at him. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. They thought he had control over the prison. The human shook his head quickly, holding up his hands to show he knew nothing. But they didn't believe him. To them, the prison responding to his presence was proof. They whispered to each other, glancing at him with growing interest. Some even bowed their heads slightly, as if showing respect or submission. Before he could react, another group came forward. This one was much larger, their leader tall and broad, her skin covered in glowing scars. She barked orders at the others, and they stepped aside. She walked right up to him, her gaze sharp like a blade. Then she pressed her hand hard against his chest. The prison hummed again, brighter, louder. Gasps filled the room. The scarred leader's eyes widened. She pulled her hand back, then looked at her followers. A single word escaped her lips, and though he didn't understand, he felt its weight. They believed he was the key. The guards above shifted uneasily, their glowing spears pulsing brighter. For the first time, they shouted something in their language. The crowd grew quiet. The guards were warning them not to get too close. But why? Why only him? The human pressed himself against the wall, his mind racing. He wasn't special. He wasn't chosen. He was just a man who woke up in the wrong place. Yet the prison itself seemed to disagree. Every time someone touched him, every time he fought, the walls responded. That night he could not sleep. He sat awake, watching the shifting lights of the prison. He thought about Earth, about home, about freedom. But deep inside, a question burned. Why him? The answer began to reveal itself the next day. The prison floor shook suddenly, alarms blaring in a tone so sharp it cut through the skull. The alien women panicked, some rushing for cover, others standing ready for a fight. The guards above raised their weapons. A giant seal in the center of the floor cracked open, glowing with a light so bright it hurt to look at. From the opening, mechanical arms reached out, pulling something heavy from the depths below. A sphere, black, pulsing with red light, floated up into the chamber. The prison walls dimmed, almost as if bowing to its presence. The alien women screamed and scattered, their fear overwhelming. The human stared at it, his body frozen. The sphere turned slowly, its surface covered in ancient markings. Then, without warning, it stopped moving, its glow dimmed. Silence filled the chamber, until it turned toward him. The sphere glowed brighter when his eyes met it. It began to move again, slowly drifting across the floor. The alien women shrieked, pulling back as it passed. The guards above shouted and pointed their spears, but none dared strike. The sphere ignored them all. It came to him. The human tried to back away, but his body hit the wall. The sphere floated closer until it hovered inches from his chest. A low hum filled the air, and the walls glowed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then he heard it. Not a voice out loud, but a voice inside his head. "You are the key." He gasped, clutching his head, but the words burned into his mind like fire. The sphere pulsed brighter. Images flashed before his eyes, cities burning, stars collapsing, alien fleets tearing each other apart. Then, a prison. This prison. A vault built to hold the sphere itself. A weapon, ancient and forbidden. The voice spoke again. "Only human hands can unlock me." The human fell to his knees, shaking. The alien women whispered among themselves, their fear now mixed with awe. Some began to kneel, their eyes filled with reverence. Others stared at him with hatred, knowing that if he was the only one who could unlock the sphere, he now held power greater than any of them. The guards roared above, their weapons glowing like suns. But even they looked uncertain. For all their strength, they did not strike. They knew the truth too. The human was not just a prisoner. He was the key, the one the prison had been waiting for. The chamber never returned to peace after the sphere appeared. The whispers never stopped. Every corner of the prison buzzed with tension. Some alien women stared at the human like he was a savior. Others, like he was prey. Factions began to form around him. Some wanted to protect him, others wanted to control him, and a few wanted to end him before he could become something greater. The human felt it every time he walked through the dim halls. Eyes followed him. Steps echoed behind him. Voices hissed, in languages he didn't understand. He was no longer invisible. He was the center of their world now, whether he wanted it or not. One evening, as the pale blue lights of the prison flickered, he found himself cornered. A group of alien women blocked the passage. Their leader stepped forward, tall and fierce, her body covered in tattoos that glowed faintly like embers. She smiled, though it was not a friendly smile. She spoke quickly, her voice sharp and pointed, toward him, then toward the sphere's chamber. The meaning was clear enough. She wanted him to use the sphere. She wanted him to unlock its power. The human shook his head. "No," he said, though he knew she didn't understand the word. He held up his hands, trying to show he would not help them. But her smile faded. Her eyes narrowed. With a flick of her hand, two of her followers rushed at him. The human's instincts returned again. He ducked under the first strike, grabbed the attacker's arm and slammed her into the wall. The second came faster, claws out, but he kicked hard, sending her sprawling backward. The leader hissed, raising her weapon, but before she could strike, a roar cut through the hallway. Another figure entered. She was taller than most, her body covered in jagged armor made from broken prison scraps. Her skin shimmered like steel, her eyes dark and cold. She slammed her weapon on the ground, a long blade made from sharpened metal, and barked words in a commanding tone. The tattooed leader froze. Her followers pulled back, growling but obeying. The steel-skinned warrior stepped closer, glaring at them until they disappeared into the shadows. Then she turned her gaze on the human. For a long moment, silence hung between them. She studied him, her dark eyes unblinking. Then, slowly, she lowered her weapon. She spoke, her voice low and rough, and though he could not understand her words, he felt the weight in her tone. She was not mocking him. She was warning him. The human stared back, breathing hard, his fists still clenched. Something in her presence felt different. She was not like the others. She didn't look at him like prey, or like a tool. She looked at him like a warrior measuring another warrior. She extended her hand. The human hesitated. Trust was dangerous. Here, every deal, every alliance could turn into betrayal in seconds. But he also knew the truth. He could not survive alone. Slowly, carefully, he placed his hand in hers. Her grip was strong, almost crushing. But then she released him, nodding once. An agreement. An alliance. From that moment, whispers spread again. The human had an ally. The steel-skinned warrior's name was whispered too, Kalara. She was feared across the prison, a leader who once ruled her faction with blood and fire before she was betrayed and thrown here. She was ruthless, but she was also respected. With her beside him, fewer dared to attack openly, yet trust was a fragile thing. Kalara had her own motives. She watched him constantly, her eyes sharp, her questions endless. She pointed at the sphere, then at him, over and over. He could not answer her. He did not know how or why the prison reacted to him, but she believed he would learn. And when he did, she wanted to be the first to stand beside him. Days passed in uneasy silence. Factions grew restless. The tattooed leader who had tried to control him now plotted in the shadows, gathering followers. Others whispered of plans to steal him away, to force him to use the sphere. And above them all, the guards continued to watch, their glowing spears never lowering, their masked faces unreadable. One night, the human awoke to chaos. Screams echoed through the prison halls. Fires burned in the corners, alien women clashing violently with each other. The factions had erupted, the fragile balance had broken. Kalara grabbed him, pulling him into cover. Her blade flashed as she cut down two attackers who came too close. The human fought too, his fists striking with deadly force. But as they pushed through the chaos, he saw the truth. They weren't fighting for survival. They were fighting for him. Every faction wanted him. Every group screamed his name in their own tongue, pointing, reaching. Some shouted in fear, others in rage. They believed he was the key to freedom, or the weapon to rule, or the danger that must be destroyed. And in their eyes, Kalara was just an obstacle in their way. The human's chest tightened as he realized the truth. This was no longer just about surviving in a prison. This was war. And he was the prize. Kalara dragged him into a narrow corridor, blocking the way with her blade. Her voice was harsh, urgent. Though he couldn't understand her words, he understood the meaning. If they wanted to survive, they needed each other. The human nodded, his hands trembling. He had never asked for this, but now, standing in the heart of a prison tearing itself apart with every faction hunting him, he realized something. He was not just trapped anymore. He was at the center of a dangerous alliance, one that could either save him or destroy him. The prison never slept, but that night it felt different. Smoke still hung in the air from the battles between factions, the ground stained with the signs of endless fighting. Whispers echoed through the corridors, names carried like blades. His name, spoken by alien tongues filled with hunger and fear. The human walked beside Kalara, her jagged blade dripping faint light as she led him deeper into the maze of shadows. She had saved him, yes, but even she could not promise safety for long. Every step they took, the walls glowed faintly, as if guiding them. Kalara noticed it too. She stopped often, staring at the shifting patterns of light, her armored hand brushing the strange symbols. Then her gaze would return to him, sharp, questioning, filled with something between curiosity and suspicion. The prison did not respond to her, only to him. Finally, they reached a place no other inmate dared enter. A massive gate stood there, carved into the living wall. It pulsed faintly with crimson light, as if breathing. Strange markings spread across its surface, ancient and sharp, glowing whenever the human drew closer. Kalara pressed her palm against it. Nothing happened. She looked at him, then shoved him forward. The human hesitated, but as soon as his fingers brushed the surface, the gate trembled. The light flared, brighter and brighter, until the symbols rearranged themselves like a puzzle, unlocking after centuries. The ground shook. The gate began to open. The sound was deafening. Dust fell from above, the walls shuddered, and the faint hum of the prison grew louder until it became a roar. The gate split apart, revealing a chamber beyond. It was vast, stretching farther than his eyes could see, its walls covered in glowing crystal veins. And at the very center stood another sphere, but much larger than the one before, floating silently above a black pedestal. The moment he entered, his chest tightened. A strange pressure weighed on him, as if the air itself recognized his presence. The crystals pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Kalara gripped her blade tighter, her eyes darting between him and the sphere. He took a step closer, and once again, the voice came, not out loud but inside his head. "You were brought here." He froze. The words rang deep inside him, echoing with a truth he did not want to hear. This prison is not a prison. It is a vault. A cage built for me, and only your kind can open it. The human's hands shook. Memories flashed across his mind again. Burning worlds, collapsing stars, alien fleets shattered by something too powerful to fight. The sphere was not a weapon of defense. It was destruction itself. Kalara noticed his fear. She barked a sharp question, stepping closer, her eyes demanding an answer. He shook his head, backing away from the sphere, but the voice grew louder. "You cannot run. You were chosen. Not by chance, but by design." The human gasped, clutching his head. Who had chosen him? Who had dragged him across the stars and thrown him into this place? Was it the guards? Was it the factions? Or something much older, something beyond them all? Kalara grabbed his shoulder, shaking him hard. She pointed at the sphere, then at him, then at the prison walls. She wanted him to explain. But he could not. How could he tell her that this place was never meant for them? That it was all built for him? The ground shook again. The sphere pulsed brighter, sending waves of energy across the chamber. The walls shimmered, revealing images, ancient carvings of battles long forgotten. He saw alien armies kneeling before the sphere, then burning under its light. He saw worlds torn apart, stars broken, entire species erased, and then humans. The carvings showed them not as prisoners, but as wardens. A race chosen to guard this weapon, to keep it locked away forever. His blood, his DNA, was the key, and, now with him here, the lock had already begun to break. Kalara's eyes widened as she saw the carvings too. She turned to him slowly, her jaw tightening. Her expression was unreadable. Was it fear, anger, or awe? The human stumbled back, shaking, his head. No, I don't want this," he whispered, though she could not understand. He pressed his hands against his ears, but the voice did not stop. "You cannot refuse. The vault has awakened. The galaxy will burn again, unless you decide otherwise." His chest heaved, his breath ragged. For the first time he realized the terrible truth. He was not just trapped here by accident. Someone had sent him. Someone had delivered him into the hands of this vault, knowing his presence would wake it. But why? The answer terrified him even more than the question. Perhaps humanity itself had done this. Perhaps Earth had known. Perhaps his own kind had cast him here, as a sacrifice, to keep the galaxy safe. Kalara stepped in front of him, her blade still, in her hand, her eyes burning. She said something low, almost a growl. Her gaze locked onto his, and for once he understood without words. She was asking him a single question. Was he going to unlock the power? Or fight against it? The silence stretched between them, heavy and unbreakable. The prison lights pulsed, the sphere waited, and deep inside, the human knew. The forbidden truth had been revealed. This was never a prison. This was a test, and he was the only one who could decide how it ended. The prison was no longer a prison, it had become a battlefield. Ever since the gate opened and the great sphere revealed its power, every faction inside knew one thing. The human was no longer just another inmate. He was the key, the only one who could unlock the vault. And that meant he was worth killing, worth dying for, worth betraying even those closest to you. Whispers spread like fire, faster than the guards could control. Factions broke into open war. Whole corridors turned into killing grounds. Flames burned in the corners, broken weapons littered the floor, and screams echoed endlessly. The prison, built to contain chaos, was drowning in it. The human moved through the madness with Kalara at his side. Her jagged blade cut down those who came too close, her armor dripping with sparks of light from shattered weapons. But even she could not protect him forever. Every step they took, another ambush. Every shadow hid another faction waiting to seize him. They fled down a narrow passage when it happened. A group of alien women blocked the way, dozens of them, their tattoos glowing like fire in the dark. At their front stood the tattooed leader he had fought before. Her eyes burned with fury. She pointed at him, shouting words in her language, then raised her hand high. Behind her, prisoners dragged someone forward. The human froze. It was one of Kalara's closest followers, a scarred fighter who had bled beside her. Now she was beaten, bound, and thrown at the tattooed leader's feet. The meaning was clear. A trade. The human in exchange for Kalara's ally. Kalara snarled, her blade flashing. She shouted at them, her voice sharp as steel. But the tattooed leader only laughed, her tattoos pulsing brighter. She pressed a blade against the captive's throat, her eyes never leaving the human. The human's heart pounded. He could see it in Kalara's eyes, rage, sorrow, and hesitation. For the first time her armor cracked, her mask of cold control faltered. The scarred fighter was her sister in arms, and the choice was brutal. Save her, or protect him. The silence stretched, heavy as a mountain. Then Kalara made her choice. With a roar she lunged forward, her blade striking with deadly speed. The tattooed leader barely had time to react. Sparks flew, steel clashed, and the narrow passage erupted into chaos. The human fought too, fists, striking with brutal force. But even as they cut down enemies, betrayal struck from within. One of Kalara's own warriors, someone who had sworn loyalty, suddenly turned. A dagger aimed at his back. The human twisted just in time. The blade, grazing his arm instead of his heart, he shoved her away. Shock and fury burning in his chest. Betrayal. Even those who stood with him wanted the power for themselves. The battle ended in blood. The tattooed leader escaped into the shadows, her laughter echoing behind her. Kalara's ally lay dead, her lifeless eyes staring at the ceiling. Kalara knelt beside her, her hands trembling for the first time. Then she stood, her jaw clenched, her gaze hard. The human knew what her silence meant. Every bond was fragile. Every promise could break. Even this alliance. But the chaos did not stop there. As they pushed deeper into the prison, the guards finally moved. For weeks they had watched, their glowing spears never striking. But now, as the factions tore each other apart, the guards descended. Their black armor glimmered, their weapons roaring with energy. They cut through prisoners without hesitation, their presence like a storm, yet even they did not strike the human. Instead, they formed walls around him, separating him from the rest. For the first time, he saw fear in their movements, not of the prisoners but of him. Kalara dragged him back, her blade raised, her voice growling with fury. She knew what the guards wanted. If they could not control him, they would cage him. And if they could not cage him, they would erase him. The battle grew worse. Factions fought guards. Guards slaughtered prisoners, and through it all, everyone screamed his name. Some wanted him dead. Some wanted him free. Some wanted him to unlock the sphere at any cost. And then, in the middle of the storm, the prison itself reacted again. The ground shook so violently that the walls cracked. Lights flared brighter than ever before, bathing everything in blinding color. The sphere's voice thundered in his head, drowning out the screams. The time has come. Choose. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his head. Images burned into his mind. Kalara's face, the dead ally's body, the factions fighting like beasts, the guards striking like machines, and behind it all, the sphere waiting, patient and cruel. Kalara grabbed his shoulders, shaking him, hard. Her voice roared above the chaos, her eyes burning with desperation. She was demanding an answer. She wanted to know if he would unlock the vault or fight against it. The human's breath came in ragged gasps. Blood dripped down his arm. Sweat poured from his face, his heart hammered like a drum. He had no idea what was right anymore. To free them might mean to free death itself. To refuse might mean to die here, lost in the storm of betrayal and chaos. The factions closed in again. The guards roared. The sphere glowed brighter. And in that moment, one truth became clear. No one could be trusted. Not Kalara. Not the factions. Not even himself. The prison had become a war zone, and he was the reason for it. And unless he chose soon, the chaos would consume them all. The prison was burning. Flames and smoke twisted through the endless halls, shadows of warriors clashing against guards, the sound of screams and steel filling the air. The factions tore at each other like animals. The guards cut through them. Like executioners, and above it all, the great sphere pulsed with blinding light. The human stood in the middle of it, his chest heaving, his body trembling, his arm dripping with blood. Kalara stood beside him, her blade cracked, her armor scorched. She had saved him again and again, yet her eyes were sharp and unreadable. Even she was waiting for his choice. The sphere's voice filled his head, louder than ever. Unlock me. End this. Decide the fate of all who stand before you. The walls of the prison split open as the ground shook violently. The guards shouted in panic. The factions froze mid-battle, their eyes turning toward him. Every alien in that prison, friend and enemy alike, looked to the human. Some dropped to their knees, begging. Others screamed his name like a curse. Kalara grabbed his arm, her voice breaking through the noise. She shouted words in her language, pointing at the sphere, then at the gates that led beyond the prison. He could not understand the words, but her meaning was clear. Choose. If he unlocked the vault, the sphere's power would be unleashed. The factions might win freedom, but the galaxy itself could drown in fire. If he refused, the prison would collapse under the chaos, killing them all before the guards or the sphere needed to act. There was no safe path. The human's mind flashed with memories. Earth, the blue sky, the warmth of home. He thought of the faces of people who trusted him, people who had never known this nightmare existed. Was this why humanity had sent him? Was he a sacrifice? Or had fate itself dragged him here to make a decision no one else could? The sphere's voice grew harsher. Do it. Release me. Or you will die with them. The ground cracked beneath his feet, sending chunks of stone and crystal into the air. The alien women screamed. The guards raised their weapons. Kalara tightened her grip on his arm, her eyes burning with a single word she could not speak in his tongue. Decide. The human clenched his fists. He had been beaten, hunted, betrayed, and cornered. He had been treated as prey, as a tool, as a weapon. But now, for the first time, he realized something no one else seemed to see. He still had a choice. Slowly, he stepped toward the sphere. The crowd gasped, a wave of fear and awe rolling through the chamber. The sphere's glow brightened, symbols dancing across its surface like fire. Kalara followed him, her blade ready, though even she did not know what he would do. He raised his hand. The hum grew deafening, the prison itself shaking as if the stars were trembling beyond its walls. Energy licked at his skin, burning but not breaking. The sphere's voice roared inside his skull. Yes, you are the key. Use me. Destroy them. Rule them. The human froze. Rule them? Was that the truth all along? Was the sphere not only a weapon, but a crown, a tool to turn him into something far worse than the factions or the guards? His hand trembled. Then, slowly, he lowered it. No, he whispered, though no one could understand the word. But the prison did. The lights flickered. The walls groaned and the sphere pulsed angrily. Its voice turned into a furious roar. You cannot deny me. Without me, you will all die. The human turned, looking at Kalara, then at the factions, then at the guards. They had fought, bled, and killed each other for him. But they were still alive. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Instead of unlocking the sphere, he slammed his hand against the black pedestal below it. The sphere shrieked, light exploding in every direction. The pedestal cracked, the chamber quaking as if the world itself was collapsing. The alien women screamed. The guards staggered. Kalara shielded him with her body as the explosion tore through the prison. Then, silence. When the light faded, the sphere was gone, shattered, broken into dust that glowed faintly before vanishing into the air. The prison walls stopped trembling. The symbols faded into nothing. The factions stared, in disbelief. The weapon they had fought for, betrayed for, killed for, gone. The guards lowered their spears, confusion rippling through their ranks. For the first time, the prison was silent. The human dropped to his knees, gasping for breath. His body shook, his vision blurred, but he was alive. Kalara stood over him, her blade still in her hand, her eyes locked on him. She could have struck him down then and there. She could have claimed revenge for the power lost. But she didn't. Instead, she lowered her blade and gave him a single nod. Not of victory, not of defeat, but of respect. The factions broke apart, their leaders snarling in fury, but none dared attack him now. The guards, too, held back, uncertain. The man who was supposed to be the key had made his choice, not to unlock destruction, but to break it forever. The prison still stood. The prisoners were still trapped, but the weapon was gone. And the human had proved something no one expected. He was not prey. He was not a tool. He was not a weapon. He was free. And with that choice, he had changed the galaxy, even if it would take centuries for the stars to understand what had been lost and what had been saved.